afraid of the way the killer walks.
How am I supposed to find out?
Echoes call from hollow halls, a voice that creeps and softly crawls. Time stands still, the air is...
Timothy James Pitson was the only child of his parents, James Pitson and Amy Joan Marie Fry Pitson. He was born on the 18th of October, 2004, and when it was time to start school, he attended the Greenman Elementary School in Illinois. On the 11th of May, 2011, when Timothy was only 6 years old, he would gain national attention without his knowledge after his mother pulled off an extremely unsettling stunt that continues to give investigators and law enforcement a head-scratcher. On this day, his father, James, dropped him off at school in the morning, and he promptly found his way to his kindergarten class. When James left, the teachers were surprised to see his mother, Amy. It wasn't closing time yet. On the contrary, the day had hardly begun. This was just 8:10 a.m., some minutes after his arrival with his father. When asked, Amy, the mother, simply told the school about a family emergency that necessitated checking Timothy out of school. However, unknown to the teachers and school authorities, Amy didn't take Timothy home. She had other plans. Bizarre and worrying plans. Timothy's father and the rest of the family eventually noticed what had happened, but there was no reason for alarm bells to start going off yet. James thought Amy just wanted to spend time with Timothy alone, but something felt off. It was time for them to be back, but that never happened. 2 days later, Amy had still not returned Timothy to the house. When James called Amy, she sounded calm and didn't give away any hint of what her plans were. However, when James asked about Timothy, Amy didn't give him the phone. She assured her husband that their son was fine and having fun, but refused to let them speak. James informed other family members, including his brother and Amy's mother. It was the same thing. Amy told everyone not to worry, saying they were okay, but wouldn't give the phone to Timothy. They were starting to get uneasy. Why was Amy preventing them from speaking with Timothy? The family informed the police, who started tracing their movement from when Amy arrived at her son's school. After picking up Timothy, she drove to a repair shop and dropped her vehicle off around 10 a.m. Then, an employee from the shop used another car to transport Amy and Timothy to the Brookfield Zoo. Amy and Timothy had fun at the zoo, and you could tell he enjoyed spending time with his mother. By 3 p.m., they went to pick up Amy's vehicle and headed to a resort in Gurnee. They spent the night after some more fun at the water park. Timothy was having the time of his life. However, for Amy, something sinister was brewing within her, even though she managed to keep it hidden from everyone. They kept showing up on security cameras at motels and were farther from home each time. The pair visited another resort in Wisconsin, where the surveillance footage showed them checking out at 10 a.m. the next day. That day, Amy spoke with several family members, assuring everyone of her and her son's safety. According to cell phone records, the calls were made around Sterling, Illinois. The presence of Timothy was confirmed from one of the calls, as he could be heard saying he was hungry. At this point, Amy avoided her husband's call, as if suggesting movement into the next phase of her plans. Then she started appearing on cameras alone without Timothy. One of the cameras showed Amy alone buying odd supplies like a pen, envelopes, and notebooks at a hardware store. Then she appeared alone at a food store. They had been on the road for 3 days. Before noon, on May 13, 2011, Amy was seen alone checking into the Rockford Inn at Rockford, Illinois. Timothy was not with her. It was the last time anyone would see Amy alive. By the next morning, she was discovered in her room, having ended her own life by overdosing on antihistamines and slashing her neck and wrists. She left a note that sent shockwaves down the spines of families and police. She started by apologizing for the past few days and added that Timothy was with those who would care for him. "You'll never find him," she said. This showed that she had help from people, and finding these people could help law enforcement locate Timothy. But the mystery only deepened with no end in sight. The police started combing through her things for evidence that could help them find Timothy. They found traces of blood in Amy's car, and tests revealed that they belonged to Timothy. Could something troubling have happened to Timothy? Or was she with caring people like Amy claimed? Further investigation revealed that the blood may have been from a nosebleed that occurred before the kidnapping. Investigators traced Amy's steps and checked surveillance footage and phone records, but the leads that popped up did not prove fruitful. The inspection of Amy's vehicle showed it had been taken through rough terrain, but officers couldn't determine the specific place. Even when they found Amy's phone alongside an Illinois road, it still did not stand out or provide more information. Television stations everywhere picked up the news, showing Timothy's pictures, but no one could come forward with any useful details. Timothy's father, James Pitson, also granted interviews, where he sounded hopeful of finding his son. He believed Timothy was alive.
You can't give up hope. As soon as you give up hope, then what should I do? What, declare him dead? I mean, no, I'm not going to do that.
And was with someone who had worked with Amy, but Timothy was never found. Years went by, and many forgot about the boy, but the case gained fresh attention in 2019, when a young man came forward, claiming to be Timothy. Everyone was happy, and James was finally proud of keeping hopes alive. However, DNA tests revealed that the individual was not Timothy. He was another person who made up stories about escaping from his captors. Timothy's case remains one of the most disturbing and confusing mysteries even today. The surveillance videos are there, but we are left with only theories and evidence leading nowhere. Before we go any further, I just want to ask you for a small favor. If you're enjoying the video so far, please give it a like. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. We recently hit 100,000 subscribers, and that's all thanks to you. Our 100K special surprise was revealed, and we had many positive responses from you. Our next goal is to hit 200K before the year ends. It feels impossible, but hey, it's free to dream, right? Also, there's a hidden word somewhere in this video for you. Let's see if you can find it. Now, back to the video. On the 30th of April, 1993, the whole world watched keenly as the #1 female tennis player squared up against her opponent in a tournament in Germany. The umpire signaled a break, and each player took to their courtside seats for a water break and a bit of rest. Suddenly, we hear a loud scream from the top female tennis player in the world. Something terrible had just happened. Born December 2nd, 1973, Monica Seles is a retired Serbian-American professional tennis player who dominated the game during her time. She won 53 singles titles and was the Women's Tennis Association #1 player for 178 weeks, the 6th most by any female player. Her titles included 9 majors, 8 for Yugoslavia, and the last one while donning the colors of the US. In 1990, when she was only 16, Seles became the youngest person to win the French Open. She excelled at the sport as a teenager.
Extraordinaire, c'est qui s'est passé aujourd'hui. Et la coupe Suzanne Linglen tendue par Monsieur Philippe Chatrier.
Overcoming all her opponents to win 8 major titles between 1991 and 1992. Seles was en route to becoming the most accomplished female tennis player when tragedy struck. During the course of her career, Seles developed a rivalry with Steffi Graf. Graf was already the world #1 when Seles became a professional. The two first met in 1989 with Graf defeating her in the semifinals of the French Open. Seles later defeated Graf in the Lufthansa Cup and then the 1990 French Open. Seles continued her fine form in 1991. By March, she had overtaken Graf as the world #1. That season, she won 10 of the 16 tournaments she participated in and ended the year as the world #1. While Seles defended her Australian Open, US Open, and French Open in 1992, she lost to Graf in the Wimbledon final. By February 1993, Seles had gathered an outstanding record in women's tennis. She won 33 finals from the 34 tournaments she registered for and won 22 titles. Her win percentage was 92.9% for all tournaments and 98% for Grand Slams. She was still #1, and everything was going perfectly, but someone wasn't happy with her achievements. In January 1993, she defeated Steffi Graf for the third time in 4 Grand Slam finals to win the Australian Open. On April 30, 1993, Celis was competing in the Citizen Cup in Hamburg, Germany. She was in the quarterfinals against Magdalena Maleva. A German man who was obsessed with Steffi Graf was sitting quietly in the crowd. His name was Günter Parche. Parche had hidden a small kitchen equipment with him. He had some troubling intentions, but couldn't get a seat close to the court, so he waited patiently for an opportunity. His motive? He couldn't stand Celis dominating women's tennis at the expense of his compatriot Graf. As the tennis match went on, the umpire signaled a break, and both players went to sit down close to the stands. Parche stood up, ran from the middle to the edge of the court, and stabbed Celis with a kitchen knife. The knife had pierced Celis between her shoulder blades. As she screamed, people gathered around her and rushed her to the hospital. Several theories began making the rounds, and many believed the attack was fueled by politics because of Celis's Yugoslavian roots. However, the German authorities revealed that the attacker was suffering from confusion and mental disturbance. He revealed that he wanted to harm Celis so that Graf could become number 1 again. Medical examinations showed that Parche had psychological issues, so he was sentenced to 2 years of probation and medical treatment. Celis was unhappy with this judgment and vowed never to play in Germany again. What people seem to be forgetting is that this man stabbed me intentionally, and he did not serve any sort of punishment for it. I would not feel comfortable going back. I don't foresee that happening, she said. Although the wound healed after a few weeks, Celis did not return to tennis until after 2 years. She later said she suffered depression and an eating disorder due to the incident. Graf was one of those who visited her at the hospital. Support poured in for her from all over the world. However, despite suggestions from the WTA, her number 1 spot was not preserved. Celis returned in August 1995 and was reinstated as joint world number 1, alongside Graf.
When she won her 2nd straight US Open title.
She won the Canadian Open, her first tournament after the comeback.
From Yugoslavia.
She lost the US Open final to Graf and won her 4th Australian Open in 1996. She continued to compete till 2003, but never regained her top form again. She retired officially in 2008. Celis showed remarkable promise as a tennis player before a senseless attack stopped her in her tracks. We'll never know how much more greatness she could have achieved, but Celis remains one of the greatest to ever grace the court. She was inducted into the International Tennis Hall of Fame in 2009. On the 18th of April 2016, Terry Lean Missy Bevers woke up in the morning to get ready for her job as a fitness instructor. This was supposed to be like any normal day. She wasn't expecting anything remarkable or out of the ordinary. However, by the end of the day, her story had already developed into one of the most upsetting and confusing tragedies in the US.
A fitness instructor was murdered in a Midlothian church by a suspect caught on camera. Much has been made of the way the killer walks.
Born in Graham, Texas on August 9, 1970, Terry Bevers was a 45-year-old fitness coach who worked at the Creekside Church of Christ in Midlothian, Texas. She was married to Brandon Bevers in 1998, and the couple had 3 lovely daughters. They all resided in Red Oak, where Missy held fitness boot camps alongside her everyday job. On April 18th, Missy woke very early, like she always did. Not only was she dedicated to her job, but she also took early morning sessions and preferred to arrive before others. This allowed her time to set up equipment and perform her own routine workout. The weather had been unfavorable with frequent thunderstorms in Midlothian. On this day, it was the same. There had been heavy thunderstorms that morning. A day before, Missy had already informed her students that the class would be held inside the church, instead of the usual church parking lot. The class was scheduled for 5 a.m., but Missy had arrived by 4:18 a.m. She came in her car and made her way to her typical parking space. Then she picked up her things and headed inside the church, unaware of the danger lying in wait for her. An individual had already broken into the church before Missy's arrival. Some minutes after 5 a.m., Missy's first student arrived for the fitness class, only to find the instructor lying in a pool of her blood. They contacted the police, and emergency services arrived shortly, but could not save Missy. She was pronounced dead by the police. Missy had suffered puncture wounds to the chest and head, but what were the circumstances that led to her death, and who was responsible? As expected, investigators started combing through CCTV footage, and discovered the first hint of foul play. The day had started silently at the church with no one in sight, but a hooded figure showed up on the camera about 10 minutes before 4 in the morning. Most cameras directly outside the church were not in operation that day, so it was impossible to see how the person came in or if they had a vehicle. When the intruder entered the church, they wandered in ways that posed more questions than answers. The police couldn't make out the face of the intruder. That's because they were completely dressed in SWAT tactical gear, including a helmet, gloves, and a vest marked with the word police. The outfit concealed their identity, and police couldn't confirm if they were male or female. First, they announced that the suspect was male, but they changed their stance later, stating that the person had a feminine gait. Also, the police did not know if it was just a disguise to throw them off scent or a message they were supposed to follow. Surveillance footage showed the intruder moving around the church with no specific destination. They didn't go straight to any room, office, or target. Instead, they walked all over the church's hallways, tapping walls and opening doors. Sometimes the intruder also smashed a few glasses. Despite appearing like they didn't know where they were going, the intruder was calm, like they had time. Occasionally, they would stop before moving again. The advantage of all this walking was that investigators were able to notice certain things about the person's movement. Police found that they staggered, which would later come into play in the case. This could be interpreted as a lack of familiarity with the terrain. At this time, Bevers was transporting her exercise gear into the church from her vehicle. She was walking down the church hallways when she encountered the suspect. The Midlothian police did not release the rest of the footage, but they confirmed that Missy crossed paths with the suspect, even if they didn't say where and when. However, the suspect is believed to have violently murdered Missy inside the church. With the outfit covering the suspect's identity, the investigators tried to identify them with other things, including their walking gait, which was slow and showed some trouble with their right leg or foot. Online detectives even pointed out the similarities between the suspect's gait and that of Missy's father. In 2021, the FBI turned to Dr. Michael Nierenberg, a forensic podiatrist. After studying the suspect's gait, Nierenberg stated that it was impossible to know the person's gender from their gait. He added that their gait may have been affected by the gear and weapons they carried. One of the motives considered was burglary, but police noted this was what the suspect wanted people to believe. They said the suspect tried to stage it like a burglary gone wrong, and that may be why they smashed glasses on the floor. However, no item was found missing from the church. Even Missy's purse and iPad were intact beside her. The other thing found was a hammer that people believe may be the murder weapon. Police later revealed that they believe the suspect specifically tracked Missy and might have interacted with her some days before the incident. Records on Missy's social media accounts showed a creepy message on her LinkedIn, but it was ultimately concluded as flirtatious. They also investigated her relatives, including her husband and father-in-law, but they all had confirmed alibis.
I've pretty much exhausted every scenario and every avenue that I can think of who could have done this.
More surveillance footage from the area showed a Nissan Altima car driving strangely close to Creekside Church. Police say the person is not necessarily a suspect, but they have yet to confirm the identity or confirm if they had anything to do with Missy's murder. By 2021, police announced a reward of $150,000 for information leading to the suspect's arrest, but there has been no positive news. On December 20, 1990, two men sat beside a Christmas tree, unwrapping presents. The first man, Vaughn Taylor, can be seen picking up the gifts and tossing them aside after opening them. His compatriot is Edward Deli. His face isn't shown because he's the one holding the VHS camera. To unsuspecting eyes, this looks like any other happy family on a festive evening.
How am I supposed to find out?
But behind this video is something far more troubling. These two men should not have been there. They are ex-convicts who broke into the Tito family's vacation home, and the evil they were about to unleash would send shivers down anyone's spine. The Tito family is a small, happy family consisting of the father, Rolf, his wife Kay, their daughters Trish and Lene, and their grandmother Beth Potts. They were celebrating their holidays in their cabin. The family referred to the cabin as Tito's Tranquility. This was where they built family memories and sometimes celebrated special moments. It was their safe place, their happy place, until these two cold arrived. Since the cabin was far from the major roads, their cars had to be parked far away, especially in the winter when everything was covered in snow. They had snowmobiles, which transported them to their car and back from it.
Being away from Texas, being able to be in a snow-covered white Christmas, and that was our family dream. We looked forward to that every year, to get to be able to spend our Christmas vacation together in the mountains with our family.
On the 22nd of December, the family wanted to do one last shopping for Christmas. They left the cabin for some hours, and on their way back, they split into their two cars. The first car had Line, her mom Kaye, and her grandmother Beth. They were the first group to make it back to the cabin, but two men were waiting for them at the cabin. Two killers who didn't care about the horror they were about to unleash. Vaughn had been jailed for aggravated burglary, while Edwards spent time for arson. The two had been friends for a while. After their release, they decided to continue living a life of crime, and Vaughn reportedly told a friend that they were going into the mountains to shoot people. By winter 1990, they set out towards the wilderness and arrived at Oakley in Utah, where several cabins were situated. They started breaking into the cabins one after the other, but most were empty. The cabins had been abandoned for the winter, so Vaughn and Edwards entered and started destroying things. If they saw anything they liked, they'd take it with them. When they got to the Tito's family cabin, they discovered that this one wasn't empty. The owners had been there recently, and they should be back soon. There was a decorated tree and wrapped gifts lying beside it, so they waited. While waiting, they searched through the house and found the VHS camera. Vaughn sat beside the tree and started picking up the gifts one after the other. Edwards sat down, documenting everything on the camera as they waited. When Lina, her mother, and grandmother got to the cabin, they were supposed to take their supplies into the cabin. But Lina said her hands were freezing and she needed to go inside for a moment to warm them. She went inside and saw a figure briefly and thought it was her cousin. She was expecting the cousin to jump out to surprise her, but she got a very different surprise, a deeply distressing one. A man came out of hiding and pointed a gun at her.
I made my way up the stairs, opened the door, and I saw a flash of gray move behind the refrigerator. And the next thing I knew, there was a man pointing a revolver at me, saying, "Get in here, get in here." A second man comes out with thick glasses behind the bedroom, pointing another big black gun at me.
When Kay went inside to check why Line was staying too long, she was confronted by another man who pointed a gun at her. Kay immediately asked what the two men wanted, pleading to be left alone with her family. They didn't listen. One of the men shot Kay and pointed the gun at Beth, who had also come inside. The men didn't wait. They shot Beth immediately in the head. As Linnea stood there distressed and unsure of what to do next, their father and her sister arrived. They pointed a gun at Rolf and demanded money. Rolf handed them everything in his hands and emptied his pockets, but these men were pure evil. They shot Rolf too, and he fell to the ground. At this point, the two assailants recalled they had been all over the house and left prints all over the place. They decided to destroy this evidence by burning down the place. They found gas cans and spread them in the house and set fire to it. Afterwards, Vaughn and Edwards kidnapped the two girls and traveled away from the place using the family's snowmobiles and cars. Their uncle Randy arrived at this time, but the two girls ignored him to keep him safe from their kidnappers. Randy thought it was strange, but wasn't sure until he saw his brother coming up on a snowmobile, soaked in blood with a swollen face. The two brothers managed to call 911, and police arrived soon. They went after the kidnappers.
Gotta stop proceeding because my uncle just saw us. At some point, he's gonna clue in that those girls went somewhere they shouldn't have gone. So we've got to slow down the situation. So immediately I say, I have to go to the restroom. I have to go to the restroom. And as we're driving down, they said, okay, but if you do anything funny at all, consider your sister dead. We pulled up to the gas station and the driver said, no, this doesn't look right. I don't feel comfortable. This doesn't look right. So we continued down the road to go to the next town, to the next gas station. As we're in between the two towns, a cop started coming by us and passing us. The driver immediately began to freak out. There's a cop, man. The one in the back said, calm down, cool off, man. It was just a cop, relax.
Vaughn and Edwards were arrested after the car fell off the road. Fortunately, Rolf was taken to the hospital in time, and he survived the attack despite being doused with gas and set on fire. When police arrived at the cabin, they found fresh blood, gunshot holes on the wall, and other evidence, including the VCR camera. Vaughn Taylor was sentenced to death, while Edwards got a life sentence. August 26, 2015, Allison Parker, a news reporter, and Adam Ward, a photojournalist, were at work. They worked for WDBJ, a CBS affiliate in Roanoke, Virginia. The two were conducting an interview with Vicki Gardner, executive director of the local Chamber of Commerce around Smith Mountain Lake in Monetta. It was like any of the 100 interviews they had conducted. Nothing special, nothing out of the ordinary, until an attack, a devastating one, happened on camera. The worst part? The attacker was someone they knew. He was their former colleague, Vester Lee Flanagan II. Born in San Francisco on October 8, 1973, Vester was a former model and television news journalist. His professional name was Bryce Williams, and he was a native of Oakland, California. He once worked as an actor and model before pursuing a journalism career. Vester earned a radio and television degree in 1995 from San Francisco State University. He already interned at a CBS affiliate, KPIX-TV, in 1993, so it was easy for him to get full-time employment after school. Having gained some experience, he switched to WTOC-TV, another CBS affiliate, and worked there between 1997 and 1999. Then he moved to Tallahassee, Florida, where he worked for WTWTOC-TV. While at WTWC, he reported to his superiors that some of his colleagues spoke offensively about his sexual orientation. Some of those who worked with him said people avoided working with Vester because he displayed diva behavior. They also said he verbally abused female colleagues who corrected his reporting.
He was gay or not. He had heard some comments over the headphones in the studio when he was anchoring, and some other times where they were making fun of him or making comments about him. You know, zoom in on the gay boy or have him turn his head or something like that. And he really took exception to that.
He was eventually sacked in 2000 for behaving oddly, after which he sued the channel for racial discrimination. His odd behavior kept popping up, making it difficult for him to keep a job. In 2012, he joined WDBJ as a multimedia journalist, but the same issues persisted, and new director Dan Dennison ordered him to reach out to Health Advocate. According to office memos, his coworkers had complained of being uncomfortable around him. We're unsure if he listened to the order.
He used the term on air, opening arguments, and I said, it's opening statements, not opening arguments. He came over and he started pretty quickly yelling at me. And when I say yelling, screaming, you're not my news director, you're not my general manager, and on and on and on. And I was a little intimidated and nervous.
But he got fired in 2013 after multiple conflicts with colleagues. Vester did not take this dismissal well. He lashed out at people in the newsroom, including Parker and Ward, with whom he had already had an altercation. His former colleagues had to be put in a room while police escorted him out of the establishment. After the incident, he took to Facebook and Twitter, where he called out WDBJ for racial discrimination while specifically naming Parker and Ward. He said Ward filed a complaint about him while Parker allegedly used a racist remark on his friend. Additionally, he filed a complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, but it was dismissed after investigations showed that his claims weren't adding up. He secured another job at United Health Group, but never really got over his last firing at WDBJ. Surprisingly, he did not stop dealing with coworkers in a hostile manner. He responded aggressively when a colleague casually pointed out his quietness. Even neighbors weren't free from his wrath. One of them described him as arrogant and rude. They said he threw cat feces at neighbors whenever he had a spat with them, which you can guess must be regularly.
Jesus Christ. You call a guy out for driving like a prick, he's gonna lose his mind.
On the day of the tragic shooting, August 26, 2015, Adam, Parker, and Gardner were in the midst of a live interview when Vester approached them around 6:45 a.m. He was holding a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. He walked up to the interview scene, but none of the people present noticed what was going on. Vester pointed the gun at Parker while calling her an inappropriate name, but lowered it for a moment before pointing it again and shooting at her. The scene turns into chaos as Ward, Parker, and Gardner start to run to safety. Vester shot the pistol 15 times. He caught Parker on her head and chest and shot Ward on his head and torso. He also shot Gardner in the back. Although Gardner survived, Ward and Parker were not as lucky. The WDBJ staff realized what was happening from Ward's fallen camera and contacted the police, but Vester had already left the scene. Around 10 a.m., Vester called ABC to confess to the shooting.
Obviously, none of that makes any rational sense, but in his mind, he sort of hit the jackpot of attention getting.
He had also sent a 23-page document, which he titled Suicide Note for Friend and Family. In it, he said he killed his 2 cats due to the rage of his dismissal. He said he was a homosexual black man and alleged that people discriminated against and sexually harassed him. By 11:15 a.m., he uploaded his own recording of the chilling incident to his social media accounts. Police tracked his phone, but he sped away before he could be apprehended. He was later found in the car with self-inflicted gunshot wounds to his head. On the night of February 10, 2023, one of South Africa's brightest talents was shot in mysterious circumstances. The 35-year-old rapper and record producer was still in celebration mode. It was only some days after his birthday, and he was to go have a good time with his close friends and fans when tragedy struck. So, who was responsible for killing AKA, and what was their motive for doing it? Born on 28 January 1988 as Kiernan Jared Forbes, AKA moved to Johannesburg from Cape Town at a young age. He fell in love with music in the country's capital and formed a group called Entity, with his friends Greyhound and vice versa in 2002. By 2006, the group had disbanded, and AKA started his solo career. But first, he went to study at the Academy of Sound Engineering. Equipped with the knowledge of music production, AKA started making music for artists like Kuli Chana, Pro Kid, and JR. He was building his career on the side, and by 2011, his debut album Alter Ego was released. Some of the singles in the album, such as Victory Lap, topped local charts, helping him to gain prominence on the South African music scene. His second album, Levels, performed much better and is considered one of the best albums of all time. AKA went on to create a unique and successful career for himself with other albums like Touch My Blood, Lava Mania, and Mass Country. He became the best-selling hip-hop artist of all time from South Africa and is regarded as one of the very best when it comes to music in the country. On February 10, 2023, AKA arrived at Durban, South Africa via the King Shaka International Airport with his team, including Tabelo Tibbs Motsoan. He was in town to perform at a popular nightclub as part of a promotion for his new album and celebration of his 35th birthday. As he arrived in Durban, he updated fans by posting pictures and interacting on his social media accounts. AKA and his team lodged at a hotel in La Lucia. By 4 p.m., he visited a local gym and then a barbershop in the area. While all this was going on, AKA was being watched. Since his arrival at the airport, 4 vehicles consisting of 2 gunmen, stalkers, and an arms dealer had quietly trailed AKA and his entourage without their knowledge. Around 7 p.m., AKA visited a stylish restaurant called Wish on Florida Road. He was with friends and close associates. As they ate and drank in the restaurant, AKA posted his meal online and tagged the restaurant. Other associates present captured videos of them having a good time and posted them on Instagram. By 10 p.m., they were ready to leave the restaurant for a club where AKA was supposed to perform. They were outside the restaurant when the unthinkable happened. Surveillance footage showed AKA hugging and chatting with friends when a gunman stormed into their midst and shot him at close range in the head. A second gunman also fired shots, one of which hit Tibbs standing behind AKA. The atmosphere turned upside down, everyone screamed, and the shooters disappeared into the crowd in no time. As things calmed, a few seconds later, AKA can be seen lying down in his blood beside his friend Tibbs. Paramedics arrived at the scene but could not save the 2 men. It was too late. The news spread quickly, shocking fans, colleagues, and everyone. Police launched a homicide investigation. In March 2023, they found the getaway vehicle, a white Mercedes-Benz, and searched inside for evidence. They found an airtime slip, which led them to the first suspect in April and the second in October 2023. They arrested one of the alleged shooters in December. 2 brothers, believed to be the 4th and 5th suspects, were arrested 2 months later. One of them was an alleged shooter. The 6th suspect, who assembled and paid everyone involved, was arrested 3 days later, while the 7th was brought in a few weeks later. If you're still watching, comment the hidden word chills. Cameras have since evolved into more than just taking pictures and clips to preserve our fun moments. They are now a crucial tool for helping to uncover crimes and untangle mysteries. If you've enjoyed this video, click the like button and head to our channel. We have more awesome and intriguing videos like this one for you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We promise it will be the best decision you ever make. See you in the next one. I'm out.